It's tea time again, and today we're going to talk about lyric. Lyric is often used interchangeably with the word poem or poetry, but that doesn't exactly work. Lyric is non-narrative. That's pretty much the only thing that people can decide about lyric, is that it is non-narrative. Sometimes people say, well, lyric is short. Sometimes people say, well, lyric has a certain kind of speaker, but really the only thing that everyone can agree on is that lyric does not tell a story. Narrative does tell a story, and there are indeed narrative poems. So you can't really use poem and lyric interchangeably. As far as definitions go, it can be frustrating to define something by what it isn't rather than what it is, and lyric is no exception. Defining lyric or the lyric experience is really frustrating for critics of poetry and literature. It's probably frustrating for you as a student, too. Critics have a lot of things to say about lyric. John Hollander reminds us that by the late 1500s, the notion of lyric had come to mean really just poem in general. People thought about it as sonnets, whether they were loose or more formal, as well as epigrams and other types of received form in lyric poetry. Mark Jeffries tells us that the early modern ideals about lyric are chiefly what govern the way that we think about lyric to this day. Judith Haber goes back to this defining by a negative. Haber says that it is lyric's refusal of linear movement that defines the genre. The point of all this is the genre of lyric is slippery. It's hard to get a real grip on what lyric means. The other thing is that we use the word lyric to mean lots of things when we're just talking. I have in my house some glassware that is called lyric because it has some sort of vaguely curvy features to it. There are chandeliers called lyric. There's a hearing aid called lyric. There are lyric movements and dance, right? There are lyric ideas in filmmaking. There are lots of different things that we categorize as lyric that don't actually work in lyric poetry. Why does all of this matter? This week in disability literature, I have drawn a distinction between narrative and lyric, and that's something that we're going to need to hold on to. Mitchell and Snyder posit that narrative story depends upon disability, that narrative needs disability as a prosthesis in order to work. A narrative prosthesis functions both as a trait of characterization and as a way to make metaphor real, to make metaphor material in fiction or in narrative in general. Some narratives aren't fiction. The theory of narrative prosthesis tells us a lot about how narrative and the body work together, but it doesn't really help us with lyric. It doesn't help with lyric poetry. So, we have some questions to ask. How does the body work in lyric? Is there a lyric prosthesis? What can we do to help us figure out how bodies and disability work in a lyric context? This is some of what we're going to be exploring in the next couple of weeks in disability literature and throughout the rest of the semester, if I'm being honest. This is also my area of study. My dissertation is all about this. The research that I publish or I'm working on publishing is about this topic. And so if I seem really passionate, it's because I am. I'm looking forward to talking about this with you.